Here we are standing at the Blaauw Eco-Forest, and at this site in September 2013 was the grand opening of this forest, and there's all kinds of people here. And so we dedicated the forest, according to what's said on this stone, to the memory of Thomas Blaauw, the husband of Anne Blaauw, and the Blaauw family agreed that this would be a good way to honor Thomas Blaauw because he and Anne had a special relationship with this land, and he said to Anne, if that ever comes up for sale, I wouldn't mind buying this land.
On behalf of Trinity Western University, I am thrilled to announce a gift of $1.5 million, which completes a remarkable $5 million gift. This gift is for the Blaauw Eco Forest.
The Blaauw forest that we were standing in front of right now, it's got a long history in the Township of Langley. You know, the Township of Langley has been around for 150 years, but sometime in the 30s, as I understand it, the Township of Langley obtained the title to this property. Since that time, it lay dormant. It just was able to grow in its natural form.
In 2012, I got word that this area was going to be sold as lots by the Township of Langley. I realized that no one knew much about this land, that the Township of Langley didn't have any information about its natural history, its ecological values. So I enlisted the help of Glenn Ryder, a famous and renowned naturalist from Aldergrove, just to gather a bit of baseline information. We just wanted to present some facts to the Township of Langley because no one knew anything about this land. We discovered at least 2 communities at risk, and there was a red listed, which is the highest conservation ranking community, and a couple blue listed communities. So each community here is of conservation concern. That was important. And as well, we found a moss that we hadn't recorded before in Langley, and a little liverwort too, which is a relative of the mosses. And so that encouraged us to carry on and promote the idea that this place should be saved.
Probably about 5-6 years ago, the township did a review of all the lands that they had and thought that this piece of land was excess to our needs and put it up for sale. Well, we heard from the community pretty fast that this land, this forest, was very important to the people that lived around here and to the greater Township of Langley community.
Well, I met my husband here in Langley in '58. Then we were married in 1960. We bought a chicken farm in '66, and we had a cranberry field just down the road, a couple miles down the road, and we drove by here many times, and he liked the land, he liked the forest. And when it did come up for sale, we bought it, we gifted it to Trinity, and one thing led to another.
We were able to partner with Trinity Western University and Mrs. Anne Blaauw to find a solution where it was purchased with money donated by the Blaauw family by Trinity Western University to preserve this forest in perpetuity.
It came with a covenant. The township made out a covenant that this land was to be preserved in perpetuity, that Trinity Western would not build any buildings or do any development that didn't relate to showcasing the environment for the community.
It's a fantastic story. It's a really one of those good news stories they don't hear of all the time. You know, the township had a need, had surplus lands. We found somebody who'd come along and help us with that and be able to preserve it as a park and for public use and also for the education of students at Trinity Western University.
When a number of us first discovered this forest, we were quite pleased and surprised at the same time because forests of this age near the Fraser River and in low elevation have largely been removed during the history of settlement in this area because these forests were largely seen as the places for agriculture to happen. So through the process of farming over a century, a lot of these forests were removed. And so we were quite surprised and pleased to find a forest of this age and condition still existing.
This black cottonwood is probably the largest I know of in Langley. But you can see here that the moss has festooned the bottom trunk area and up here. But all the way up the tree and on the large trunks there'll be lots of moss, which is important for invertebrates and the birds which feed on the invertebrates. So we have whole communities of organisms, little ecosystems. Also, black cottonwood is very important for contributing coarse woody debris and soil nutrients.
Areas like the Blaauw Forest are very valuable as our society and culture continue to develop. To have an intact area where species like birds and other mammals and insects and amphibians can live and have their lives, it's just becoming a rarity. But as birds migrate through, because a number of these species here that we're just hearing right now, like the Swainson's thrush and the Pacific slope flycatcher, they don't live here all year. And they come from the south, they come up here, they nest, and they go back. But if they come up here and their forest is gone, they're in trouble. Some of the other birds, like the Pacific wren, is here all year round, but if they don't have a place to live, their numbers will decline. And we're finding that with a number of bird species, that the numbers are declining drastically. And so to have a forest like this is a real gift.
This piece of property really has been a wonderful blessing to Trinity Western University and its students. It has so many varied types of habitat here. We have everything from bog to deciduous trees, coniferous trees. We have native plants here. We have rare and endangered plant and animal species that we find here. No matter what kind of student that you have, everything is here. And it's so rare to have all these different habitats, all these little ecosystems in such close proximity to each other.
Being at a small university like Trinity Western University, one of the big rewards is being able to work one-on-one with students and mentor them, and being able to have a living outdoor lab. If they're an environmental scientist, they need to be able to come to a place like the Blaauw Ecoforest and just do some really serious scientific work as an undergraduate. And we have been blessed not only with this forest, but the Blaauw family has assisted in providing funding for these students to work out here.
For me, what's been interesting about the Blaauw is when I took ecology, I got a bonus opportunity to go and do some restoration work along the fence line where there was a disturbance. And I got to see restoration in action, which is something that I've used in the rest of my career at Crow's Nest and in other classes, things like that. So that was 2 years ago, and now I can come back and see the things that we planted are starting to grow and just see how a restoration project looks practically over a few years. Not only that, but I've been able to do projects here for other courses, and yeah, it's really cool to have this space that you can use for class projects like that.
I get to come to the Blaauw Forest for either a travel study field trip or an ecology. You know, our school really tries to bring the Blaauw Ecoforest into our education and get us out here to experience it, and I feel incredibly privileged that Trinity has this property and that we can come walk and just see like the amazing forest and how it functions, and comparing that to other forest ecosystems that I've looked and studied at. It's really cool to just walk into the bog and be like, where am I? This is a surreal environment that I don't get to see at many other places because it's so rare.
So Karen Ankhorn and I were doing our non-vascular plant research where we were identifying different moss, anything that's non-vascular, fungi, things like that. And we did a lot of like the front of the property, and then we eventually trickled our way this way. Once we got into this area of the forest, we found that it was a lot bouncier and really cool, and we were kind of like wondering what's the difference and why it's so different than the front. And then as you look at the ground, because our noses are basically on the ground the entire time when we're doing this kind of project, we see different types of moss, and so we're looking at this one thinking like, what the heck is this? And then we're realizing it's sphagnum. And then we find that there's different plants that are correlating to a bog, and we get super excited and we start kind of jumping to conclusions, and we're thinking, okay, maybe this is a bog, maybe this is a bog. Once we measured the pH, we realized that there was a really acidic environment, which again points towards bog life. And so when we discovered that this is probably a bog, Dr. Clements helped us out and we got to do some peat coring, and that was even more of the clincher. And just by looking at the ground at this tiny little piece of green moss, we discovered something that's historical, which was amazing, and it was quite life-changing. And then we got to name this little location after ourselves, if that's something that was really exciting and fun for us too. So we named this the Gearhorn Bog, and we tried to come up with something cute, and so we just combined our last names. So it's Gear, and then her last name at the time was Ankhorn, so we got Gearhorn Bog. So it was an amazing experience to see all that.
One of the great things about Trinity Western University's environmental science program is we have opportunities to come to a place like this, the Blaauw Ecoforest, to bring our undergraduate students here and give them opportunities to practice their environmental studies methods and techniques. And so today what we're seeing is two of our students, and basically they're here in the forest taking a core sample from this particular tree. And this is all part of a larger project where we want to learn more about the environmental history of the Blaauw Ecoforest. So this property that we were very fortunate to be given by the Blaauw family has allowed us to preserve and protect it, but also to actually set up essentially a natural creation laboratory. So when we finish with our samples in the field, what we do is we go back to the tree ring lab at Trinity Western University, and then we prepare them for further analysis. That analysis involves looking at the tree rings under a microscope and practicing the principle of cross-dating. Cross-dating is what differentiates tree ring science dendrochronology from just ring counting. Anyone can count tree rings, but cross-dating allows us to pattern match. It looks at the growth and the wide rings and the narrow rings, and it allows us to basically determine what the barcode of the tree is. And once we have measured them all, then we create what's called a ring width chronology. And that is essentially the record of that tree's life or history through time.
So at Blaauw Ecoforest, I've undertaken my undergraduate thesis, and this involves using my dendrochronological techniques, and I'm analyzing the growth rates of western hemlock between a bog environment, which we have here at Blaauw Ecoforest, and also the forest environment. So this shows the diversity of this ecosystem here at Blaauw and how important it is.
It's so great to have opportunities like coming to the Blaauw Ecoforest and being able to do research and studies here. As a geography and environmental science major, it's really difficult to be able to go out into the field on certain classes because you do have that human and science side. So it's really, really great to have an opportunity to come out into nature that's close by and just be able to research what's going on here.
So a monitoring well is this device here, and it uses above ground and below ground influences to kind of get a combined picture of what the water is in a given ecosystem. It has holes above the ground which extend below, and you're getting there like a rainwater influence, a condensation, and the subterranean waters all combined to create this pH or chemical composition that you can then take and monitor and examine to look at what kind of plant life or what kind of other life would be present in this given ecosystem. It was just amazing to be able to step out of the laboratory environment that I've kind of gotten used to throughout my first year of lab sciences and just center myself in the forest. And as you can see, it's a beautiful place, and there's just this feeling of calmness while you're in here, and being able to take something that I love, which is the sciences, and combine that with being outside in nature, something I also very much love, has just been amazing for me. And being able to learn more about this environment, especially in an effort to save and preserve and restore it, has been very rewarding. And I'm just so thankful for the opportunity to be here doing these studies, and also for the opportunities given to us by donors such as Blaauw, who have put so much time and money and effort into helping us preserve this forest and giving students like myself an opportunity to come in here and do research and kind of figure out where we want to go with our careers and in our lives.
As a professor, what really gets me up in the morning, what makes me excited, is students that are on task and just they have this quality that's beyond what you would expect, and they're just so fun to work with. These students that are going to go out into the world and make something out of what they've learned here.
We both worked for Dr. Clements for about 2 years now. He just sees like the drive in certain students.
Yeah, it's the idea of like, you know, once we're graduated, he's still connected with us. Yeah. It really just is a heartwarming feeling to know that a professor cares about you so much. And I really think that's something special that we've got in our education here at Trinity.
When we acquired this property, there was a loose network of trails, and some of the trails, frankly, were not in good places because they were kind of ad hoc trails. But now, thanks to the continuing generosity of the Blaauw family, we've been able to put in a new trail It's just a beautiful trail. Two people can walk side by side.
The trails have been built in such a way that they're easy to navigate, whether you're pushing a stroller or you're in a wheelchair. They're easy to get around. It's friendly. Everything's there for you. There's spots where you can sit and rest. It's a great place to be. And I hope a lot of the residents do take advantage of this beautiful part of Langley.
We couldn't be more grateful to people who donate land, and not only that, but the funds to continue doing research on that land. Like, we really owe our career direction essentially to the research that we've done, and we wouldn't be able to do that research without the funding that we get from generous donors.
So I'm really grateful for the ability to do this project where I was involved in, and for Anne Blaauw to give a wonderful donation to us and to our school. We wouldn't have had this kind of experience or research, and I think a lot of it will be an educational thing, not just for our students but also for our community around us. And for such a tiny little forest and such a big donation, it's having a big result already.
Places like this wouldn't exist if it wasn't for those who have it in their hearts to protect these places. And I feel really blessed and really privileged to be able to come and work in a place like this.
I'm so grateful to Anne and her family for this wonderful gift. Trinity Western is truly blessed by this forest here so close to our campus, allowing our students to study and come here to learn more about environmental studies, but also for the recreational aspects that it brings to the Langley community.
I'm so moved by the wisdom of the prophet Jeremiah. God tells Jeremiah, "Seek the well-being of the city into which I've carried you. Pray for its well-being, and when it prospers, you too will prosper." This is central for the future and vision of Trinity Western University. This Blaauw Ecoforest is a fine example of that kind of partnership.
The Trinity Western University and the Township of Langley have had a partnership that goes back many years in the lands that they're on now and other lands that they've purchased. And certainly the Blaauw Ecoforest is part of that partnership. There's a piece of land adjacent to the Blaauw Ecoforest, which is an old gravel pit we're now remediating for the future residents and for the future students to work in and sort of blend in and rehabilitate it even further to bring it back to its natural state.
I think the future of this forest staying green for generations and generations to come, for my kids, my grandkids. I'm so excited about it. I love coming through here. I enjoy hearing about what's been found, and when Trinity posts on their Facebook page all their different things they found and pictures, and and just to see that, and to see that my family in the Netherlands, they can see it as well and appreciate it and comment on it. It's just a warm feeling. It's a place to feel close to my dad, and I really enjoy that.
I think this park as a legacy for Dad is huge. He's been over 50 years in this community. He helped start the first cranberry farm here. In fact, his first farm that he developed and sold, he actually sold it to the Cranberry Lady, who in turn started the Fort Langley Cranberry Festivals. The legacy that he's left and what he's done as a farmer, is incredible. And you know what, I've got boys, 2 sons, and it's there, as Janet said, for her daughter to come in here and to know that this is their grandpa's legacy, and it's going to be around for a while, and the public can enjoy that as well.
As a society, we cannot exist without God's creation, and yet so often we ignore it. So we need places like this, special places where people can access the creation and cherish what God has given us. And we just praise God for the amazing Blaauw Ecoforest here. It's just an incredible resource for us now and for generations to come.